This is cabbage, which you're probably familiar with. And this is radicchio, which might be new to you. These two are neighbors in the produce aisle and they look similar. But these are actually two very different vegetables with different personalities. Today I'm going to break it all down so you know which of these to cook with and why. Hello and welcome to I Want to Cook. My name is Chef Matt and today we are tackling cabbage versus radicchio. And if this looks familiar, well yes, this is also the answer to last week's trivia question. This is indeed radicchio, and these folks right here knew that. They got that answer correct. Now it only takes one glance at these to see they look very familiar, especially when we're talking about the purple cabbage. In fact, you might even mix them up in the produce aisle if you were shopping for one or the other. But before we get into their differences, let's talk about their commonalities. Now these are both leafy vegetables. They both have kind of this head shape to them, this kind of rounded shape. And as I said, they are both found fresh in the produce aisle. And at least here in America, they can be found fresh year-round. Both of these can be eaten raw or cooked, and they can be used in both hot and cold applications. And they can also take some pretty high heat regarding cooking. They won't just wilt like some vegetables. I'm looking at you, spinach. And regarding that heat, they can take sustained periods of heat, whether that's boiled cabbage or roasted radicchio. As vegetables, these are both pretty high in nutrients, especially vitamin K and fiber. And both of these, if you look at the bottom, they both have these tough, kind of fibrous roots here holding them together. They can both be stored in the refrigerator for about a week or more when they are tightly wrapped in plastic, so they can easily be on hand for when you want to use them, either raw or cooked. And finally, they both have a nice visual pop to them. I mean, just look at this big head of cabbage. It's hard to miss that, and it really stands out in like a salad or slaw or something like that. And then look at radicchio. I mean, this is just beautiful. Have you ever seen a vegetable like this with these nice striations, almost like a tiger? Okay, let's talk about cabbage first. And like I say, you are probably familiar with this. This can be found in just about any supermarket. And the nice thing about it is, well, not only is it ubiquitous, it's easy to find, it's also quite cheap. I mean, where I shop, this is only maybe $1.50 a pound or less. It's a really good value, and this is something that really bulks up foods. It also has a crunchy texture to it, a nice bite, and it's quite mild in flavor, relatively speaking. Cabbage, of course, plays really well in salads and is the star of things like coleslaw, which we made not too long ago. I showed you how to make a delicious coleslaw that was cheap and super easy. And of course, cabbage comes in several varieties. There's of course this purple cabbage, there's this green cabbage, kind of the same size, but there's also Savoy cabbage, there's Napa cabbage, and cabbage is part of a larger family that also includes broccoli and cauliflower, and of course Brussels sprouts. And don't shake your head at Brussels sprouts. They are delicious, especially when you air fry them like we did not so long ago in a video. In fact, I think Brussels sprouts, if you just called them baby cabbage, well, they would have a lot better reception among the public. And another great thing about cabbage is that in addition to being a star either raw or cooked, it can also be pickled or even fermented. If you've ever had sauerkraut on your hot dog, for example, well, that's cabbage. Okay, let's talk radicchio. And again, this might be new to you. This might be some unfamiliar territory, and you're not alone. Radicchio isn't quite as well known as cabbage, even though it looks very, very similar. And that's because, well, it's just, you may not be able to find it quite as easily as you do cabbage. Now, again, in larger stores, well-stocked grocery stores, that shouldn't be a problem, but if it's a smaller market, you may not find this. Now, even though they look very similar, they both have kind of this head shape, radicchio tends to be smaller. As you can see, this is just a smaller head than this cabbage. And radicchio is part of a different family entirely. It's part of the chicory family, which also includes endive and frisee. Now, like cabbage, there are different types of radicchio, but not the same variety as cabbage. There's two main types that you'll find here in the United States, and forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation of these, but I believe it's Chioggia, like this one here with this rounded head. And there's also Treviso, which has more of an oblong head and some longer leaves. And those oblong leaves of the Treviso, by the way, can be used as an edible scoop. They are sturdy enough to hold a dip, and then you can just eat it. Now, there is another type of radicchio, and it is so special that, well, I've never even seen it in person. Like others, it hails from Italy, and it is called, forgive me if I butcher the name, Treviso tardivo. And it undergoes a very special cultivation process that takes much longer than similar radicchio, and well, it looks kind of like these strands. It looks really, really cool. If I can ever find it, I'll be sure to, well, hopefully do a video on it. And if you've ever had it, please let me know. What does it taste like? It just looks amazing. Another difference between radicchio and cabbage is that, at least where I shop, radicchio tends to be more expensive. So where this is less than $1.50 a pound, this is about $3 a pound. So this is twice the price, at least where I shop. But I think the biggest difference is how they taste. And where cabbage is a little more mild, a little more crunchy, well, radicchio, yeah, it's got that crunch factor, but it's bitter. It is just one of those foods that has a bitter taste to it. And that's definitely not a bad thing. Bitter foods can be great, but it's something you should definitely know about. You probably wouldn't want to use this in something like coleslaw because it would just be too overpowering. However, you can use its leaves here and there in a salad as part of a larger, big bowl of leafy greens. That way it works out really good because some of that bitterness is a contrast to the other ingredients. Now, if you want to tame some of that bitterness and you're using this in a raw application, one thing you can do is separate its leaves and put them in ice water for about half an hour. That'll help kind of tamp down some of that bitterness. And of course, be sure to dry them thoroughly before you use them. Now, as I said, radicchio is also great when it's cooked. It can be sauteed in a pan with some oil and some salt and pepper. It's really good that way. Do note that its coloration will change. It will turn to kind of a gray from this lovely purple, and that's totally normal, but it's still quite tasty. My favorite way to cook radicchio, however, whether it's this kind of head-shaped one or the more oblong Treviso, is grilled. And grilled radicchio is absolutely delicious. And the way I do it is I cut the head into either halves or quarters. I put some olive oil on it just to kind of protect those leaves. And then I grill it on a hot grill with a nice liberal dose of salt and pepper. And you get these beautiful charred leaves. It's wonderful. What I then do is dress it in a absolutely delicious balsamic molasses vinaigrette. And let me tell you, the contrast between the bitterness and smokiness that the radicchio takes on from the grill and that lovely sweet molasses, it's absolutely delicious. And I'll actually put a whole link to that recipe on my website, iwanttocook.com. It's really, really good if you want to get an introduction to cooked grilled radicchio. So there you go. Cabbage and Radicchio. Now you know about them both. You know how to use them, when to use them, etc. All I need to know is, well, how are you going to cook with them? Which one are you a fan of? Do you use this? Do you use this? Do you use them both? I would love to hear how you use both Cabbage and Radicchio. Be sure to put that in the comments below. Okay, trivia time. Who knows what this strange looking kind of dual tipped device is? If you know what this thing is or you have a guess, put it in the comments below. I'll tell you this, it's not the world's smallest oar. I mean, I guess it could be, but it's not that. So let me know your guess in the comments below. And of course, next week I will let you know the correct answer, what this thing is, and how it is used in the kitchen. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Until next time, I hope you want to cook.